limit those in because of the time. And I hope that you're understanding. And my understanding is, David, that maybe those folks have been identified, or if not, you will help do that if you don't mind. So with that, David, we'll turn the time to you, Mr. Former Speaker.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is David Clark. I'm a board member of the Responsibility Foundation. And this part of the state and our capital city holds a very special place for me, with about a dozen years of service. Now looking back, as Lowry can reflect, I find it interesting that one of my best interns during my tenure up here now is serving in the House and is co-chair of this committee. Jordan was my intern up here. What goes around comes around. I was thankful for that experience. At this time of year, we tend to give a lot of thanks to things. Driving up from St. George, Lowry may reflect, there's a lot of talk radio to kind of numb that drive you listen to. And as I was listening, driving up, listening to the conditions around the world, I was reflecting upon one particular story that dealt with a monument in Washington, D.C., one that I had been to, but not probably the first dozen times I was there. It's a kind of an obscure one between the Lincoln Memorial and the Pentagon on a not too heavily traveled street in a park. It's the Iwo Jima Memorial in our nation's capital. And at the base of it are the words of Admiral Chester Nimitz and his timeless tribute to the Marines that served in World War II. And it says, "Uncommon valor was a common virtue." I thought, how appropriate. At this time, you look around the world, I think the world needs America.
Why did you straighten my couch?
More than ever right
Because I
now.
thought we had to
There needs
push
to be
it
that
back so we
shining
could fit the
city
table
on
in
a
there.
hill.
We had to pull back that
And I
other
reflect
blue
back,
table.
excuse me,
It can't be on the curb. If
how
the table's
blessed
out
we
here,
are
then
here
where
in
you gonna put
Utah.
that card table?
It's
think-
just fine.
the quality of life in Utah has never been better. Personal and family incomes are way up. Jobs are plentiful. Utah's pumping unprecedented amount of money into public schools. Our air is cleaner. Our water has never been purer. We're investing billions of dollars into future transportation and water infrastructure. Our budget's balanced, and we are the best managed state by every measure in the nation. Yet on top of that, I'm not sure how they measure it, but we're the happiest place in the country. America needs Utah. And with that, why we're here today, I think there's an opportunity to reflect upon the freedoms we have and the liberties that we enjoy. But liberty unchecked can turn into anarchy. And that comes with, liberty comes with responsibility. Our intent here today, and I want to share with you a concurrent resolution that the legislature passed back in February of 2010. It was called the House Concurrent Resolution. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it says House Concurrent shows where it began in the House. Concurrent means it has the House, the Senate, and the governor. And a resolution means it's not statute, but it is the belief and the thought and the presence of the legislative body of the state of Utah. Chief sponsor was Representative Mike Morley. The Senate sponsor was John Ballantyne. It passed that day in the House, 70 in favor, 0 against, with 5 being absent. In the Senate, it went 27 in favor, 0 against, and 2 being absent. So it went unanimously through the system. I want to share, if I can, just a couple of brief excerpts of that resolution. It says, whereas 40 years ago, Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, Dr. Viktor Frankl, declared in order for freedom to endure generation after generation, Our liberties must be lived with responsibilities. Whereas Dr. Frankl challenged America to create a responsibility statue to complement the message of the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. And these two monuments would forever send a virtual reminder of the two principles of liberty and responsibility required to keep freedom's flame burning bright. Further states, whereas Utah will forever be able to lay the claim of the moniker, the birthplace of the Statue of Responsibility. Now therefore be resolved that the legislature of the state of Utah and the governor concurring therein express support for the creation of the Statue of the Responsibility. And further be resolved be the birthplace of the Statue of Responsibility. That's why we are here today. We think the time has come for that to take place. I also have the privilege, I'll just mention in passing, of serving on the 250 Commission. It'll be celebrating our commemorative 250th birthday as a nation. And we hope to be able to, while we are just at the beginning part of that process in formulating, we hope, I do personally as a commissioner, hope to encourage that the statute and what and all that it brings to the point to be part of the celebration that Utah is putting together to commemorate our 250th anniversary as a nation. With that, I'd like to now turn some time over to the others that are with the Statue of Responsibility here. I'll introduce them in the order that I hope that they will appear. Steve Cohen, who is our CEO, as mentioned earlier. My sister, Lisa Clark Price, who's also a board member and vice president of the foundation. She may be my only sister, but she's still my favorite sister. Bill Fillmore, a prominent attorney in Provo, is here on the board. Myself, Gary Lee Price, who is the sculptor and creator. We also have in the room with us today members of our executive team, Todd Tuller, JD Tuller, Val Hell, Shannon Mitchell, who's right here, and Sue Benchley. With that, I'd like to turn some time over as we'll go through our presentations to Steve Cohen.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Cohen. Welcome to our board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. My name is Steve Cohen. I am CEO and chairman of the board of the Responsibility Foundation and have been in those two positions for the last 5 years. I've been involved with the statue for 15 years. I want to start there. This is not a new project. It is not a project that is derived from the vision of just one great artist, in our case, our sculptor, Gary Lee Price. It's something that's sustained itself since 1997 until today, which says something about why it is important, I think, to put it here in Utah, in that it's a mature project that would never have still been around for all these years if it didn't have merit in terms of what it meant to all of us. So we're looking at, over 20 years of commitment, the last 10 years of working very hard on trying to locate the statue in another location, which was the state of California. And I tried with the group as hard as we could to try to get the state to recognize the value of the Constitution and also San Diego County. And what happened there was a sea change in terms of the view of what responsibility meant. To those of us in this room, I don't think responsibility is that difficult a concept, right? And you say, because people always come to me and say, well, Steve or Mr. Cohen, what does it mean to be responsible? And I said, well, I don't think it's that tough. I mean, when we really think about it, one, we all have codes. Our codes are different, but we all have codes. Even people who don't have codes, right? We know that. And I usually say, all responsibility really is, when you get down to it, is that you want yourself to be treated and the world to be treated the way you want to be treated. It's sort of biblical, isn't it? Right? It's pretty ancient. but that's what it's about. What's most interesting to me as sort of a philosopher on the side is how hard it is for entities to figure that out and get it right more than wrong. You know, it was hard to believe. It's 100 years ago this month that a corporal in the German army thought that he would take over Germany in a beer hall putsch in November of 1923. There was a little democracy then called the Weimar Republic that they thought was going to be sustainable. And the Republic put him and his buddies in jail for a while, where he cultivated his hate and megalomania,
Yeah.
which eventually destroyed Germany. Viktor Frankl saw that. The hardest way you can see it from inside a concentration camp. And Frankl noted that the Weimar Republic and all republics don't just self-sustain themselves. Sometimes you think that everything's going to be okay and it's not. And they laughed at Hitler, and they laughed at Stalin and Lenin, and nobody believed that Mao Zedong would ever take the long march to Beijing. And we're only 250 years old, and we're a little shaky right now. I think most of us think we're a little shaky. And that's why we're so adamant about taking this point of the mountain that you all are in control of and saying, here's an opportunity for us to put a message to all America, but to all the world. Just indulge me for half a second of another 100 years ago. It's Paris, France. It's 1889. The World's Fair is going to come to Paris. Chamber of Deputies gets together and they say, hey, let's do something really special. Can we do something architecturally unique that we could put in Paris that would represent for all time what Paris is about 100 years after our revolution, 1789? So they have a competition. And a guy named Gustav Eiffel comes forward and he wins the competition because he says, I can build something 1,000 feet tall out of iron and steel. Nobody believes him. Everybody laughs at him. Takes him years to do it. But in 3 years' time, from the time he gets the commission until the time it's done, it's done. And for all time, Paris, France, and France has given the world something which it never would have had before because of the vision of those guys in the chamber. You're my Chamber of Deputies. You're those guys and women, thank you, who can say for all time, for our 250th anniversary, let Utah be the only state in the union that will take seriously that we have to say something definitive about where we're headed as a nation. And let us build this statue of responsibility so that it's a gift to America, but more importantly, it's a gift to the world. And that's why we're here today, because we really do believe that one, we can build it. We have a good plan. Two, we know we can raise the money to create it. It costs you nothing but to give your spirit to it. And that's why we're here today. And I really look forward to you listening to the other folks here and in due time and going through the correct process that we're able to accept from you the opportunity to put our statute of responsibility that we've been involved with since 1997 here in Utah, so the world can see it and cherish it, and that we can say something about where we're going as a nation at year 250. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to bring you Gary.
Thank you. We usually ask you to withhold your applause, but I found myself clapping a little bit too. So, it's important to retain some decorum, and I know you'll all help me with that. So, welcome to our board meeting. Would you like to identify yourself, and you can proceed?
Yes, and to follow that, wow. My name is Gary Lee Price. I'm the designer and sculptor of the Statue of Responsibility. Extremely honored to be here, Point Board. Lots of reflection today. extremely honored to have so many incredible supporters. Dave, Mr. Cohen, thank you very much. I want to thank my sweetheart Lisa for being such a great leader of this project and where we're at now. It's been a wonderful history, a long history, an up and down history with this statue. Having been reached out by Dr. Cubby to design it after his friend and colleague, Dr. Frankel, passed away in '97, to be asked to put a design to the brainchild, a statue of responsibility, was an extreme challenge. To be able to go in 2004 to Vienna and meet Mrs. Dr. Ellie Frankel. That was one of the greatest days of this sculptor's life. To meet her, to be able to present the design for this statue, having no idea whether she would say yay or nay. Thank you, friend, for coming to visit me, but no thank you. Instead, being invited into their flat where her and Dr. Frankel lived most of their lives together, and having her absolute approval and stamp of the design of the Statue of Responsibility. There's a beautiful story that goes along with that I've told to many, and we'll share that at another time. But from that time forward, to be able to hopefully put this reminder someday up somewhere that we're all one, we're all united. And sometimes we're the hand reaching up, and sometimes we're the hand reaching down. And to be able to be at this point right now is a wonderful, wonderful blessing in my life. I would like to point out one thing. One of the last additions to this design of the statue, you'll see a bunch of colors in a crescent form. That crescent, if you were to extend that on all angles, horizontally, vertically, it creates a giant globe. And that giant globe represents that we're not only responsible for humanity, but for everything on this beautiful blue orb that we inhabit. It represents the flora and fauna, all the plants, all the animals, all the seas, all the skies, everything that is there for our continuance. We're responsible for all of it. And to be able to be at the point where it's a possibility that that reminder can be there for not just Utah, not just the United States, but for the world is a wonderful thing. My sweetheart coined the words, and I love these words. It's not just a monument, it's a movement. And I couldn't agree more with Dave that it is time that we take responsibility more than ever. Thank you, and look forward to seeing where this goes next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. I should mention that we have been joined by our Governor Cox. We're honored to have you here. And as I understand it, you would like to take a few minutes. So you're welcome. If that's okay, Lisa, he's asked for some time.
Seriously, Lisa. No, you go first. That's okay. We're flexible here.
I hope that's okay with you, Lisa. We're going
Thank
to
you,
let
Lisa.
you pick up after he concludes. It is an honor to have you here, Governor, and whenever you attend a function, it brings with it, I think, an added spirit of importance, and that's how we see your appearance here today. So with that, we'll turn some time to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the commission, it's great to be back with you. As some of you know, I got to co-chair this incredible commission with my friend, then Representative Snow, and we worked really hard. We hired Alan Matheson and some really great people to help run this commission. You'll forgive me if I spend a little background on why I'm here, because I feel so strongly about this. Several years ago, as we were looking at this vision, this idea, what could happen at the point, I told the members of the commission in our very first meeting that my biggest fear was that we would dream too small, that we would take this not once in a generation opportunity, but once in the history of our state opportunity, a multi-generational opportunity, and that we would do something nice and not something great. At that time, I was reading an interesting book, a fascinating book called Devil in the White City. I don't know if any of you have read it, but it's about the Chicago's Fair, the World's Fair that took place in Chicago near the turn of the century, the last one. I guess we've turned another one. It's an interesting, it's kind of a murder mystery on the one side, but on the other side, it's about the history of the World's Fair and big dreamers and this idea that they wanted to do something special and something unique. And that's where the Ferris wheel came from, actually. It was an invention that was first used there. And it got my mind thinking. Every great city in the world has something that brings people to it, something that attracts people, and something that gets them up in the air too. I will say something. We just went to Paris on a trade mission, and we all went to the Eiffel Tower. It's one of the first things we did. You go to Seattle, everyone goes to the Space Needle. When we went to St. Louis, we went to the Arch. And so several years ago, I became fascinated with this idea that we needed something at the point, something that would bring people there, something that would elevate people, something that would showcase the best of Utah to the world. And what could that be? What would that be? And I talked to many of you about it many times. I said it over and over again in our meetings that we need something. And then a few years ago, by happenstance, I don't even remember how I came across it, but I learned of this idea of the Statue of Responsibility, and immediately knew that this had to be here in Utah. Now, I want to say something. I have not talked to any of these people. They had no idea that I was on this journey all by myself. I had no idea that they had any ties to Utah. I knew none of this. All I knew was that we used to be a nation of builders. All the great civilizations have been civilizations of builders. And in those civilizations, they built monuments to stand the test of time, monuments that were representative of what they believed and what they wanted to pass on to future generations. We were a nation of architects. In fact, I didn't think of this until just now, and I'm hoping I can find it. I'm a little embarrassed. I should have come more prepared, but this is a quote that actually comes from that book. There was a great architect at the time in Chicago, and I'm sure hoping I have this in my notes somewhere. Let me see. I may not be able to find it, but somebody can help me with the quote. It says, it's about building and building inspiring things. I'm not going to find it. I apologize, but that we need to build big things to inspire mankind. We need that, and we're not doing that anymore. Again, we used to be a nation of builders and architects, and now we're a nation of arsonists. We tear apart, we destroy, we tear down. And there's so little left to inspire us. I believe Utah is still a state of architects, a state of builders. I still believe that we believe in big things that outlive us, things that are bigger than us, things that matter more than just the moment. And And I wanted something that would represent that. And this is that. We understand liberty. We believe in liberty. The founders of our nation understood they fought against the greatest superpower in the world to bring freedom to our country. We understand that these rights that we have come not from government but come from on high. That God has given us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? We understand how important liberty is, but liberty on its own, without a check and a balance, leads to chaos and destruction. And there are too many people in this country today that believe that they get liberty and need liberty and demand liberty without any responsibility whatsoever. I've said before, I said it in my State of the State speech, that if we want smaller government, we need bigger people. And I believe we still have big people in Utah, but we cannot take that for granted. It is up to us to decide if we are going to keep Utah, if we are going to pass what is so special about this place on to the next generation. This idea that every one of us has a responsibility to our fellow man, to lift them up, to help them. Because what happens is when we stop doing that, and we have stopped doing that as a nation, when Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States a couple hundred years ago, he saw something very unique, that we formed associations, that we took care of our neighbors, many of them religious associations, but community associations. And it was unique to the United States of America. There was no other country on earth that did that they didn't rely on government to solve all of their problems. But when those associations go away, when we stop lifting our fellow men and women, right, then government is the only institution left to do that. And we keep relying on government to do more and more and more. And government was not designed to do that. It's really bad at it. And it fails us and it fails our people. And so we need reminders, real reminders of our duty to each other. I can think of no other emblem that better represents who we are as a people in this state than the Statue of Responsibility. This is our opportunity to leave a legacy not just to our children and grandchildren, but to the entire nation. A place where I believe that people will flock not just from our nation, but from all over the world to be reminded that we have a responsibility that precedes government to each other. And to do it, to see it, to be inspired by it, to go to the top of it and see this desert that has blossomed like a rose, this very special place full of very special people, is something that I would give anything to leave to the next generation. So you have, I think, a unique opportunity, singular in the history of our great state, to do something big, to do something monumental, literally, to change the face of this place and the world forever. And I hope that we will take that opportunity. Thank you for letting me come today.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
Governor.
Alan, go ahead.
That was inspiring. And I don't know if this is the quote you were thinking of, but by Daniel Burnham, who was the architect of it. I think he said, "Make no small plans. They have no power to stir men's souls." I don't know if that's the one, but.
Thank you, Alan, and well said. I can tell you this, as charter members of this board with the governor, and I recognize Al Hill, who is here with us back, was a member of that, and many of you. That was, I think, almost going on 5 years ago, Governor. This idea of something significant and big was his theme from the beginning. This is before he was governor. He was lieutenant governor, sitting as a member of that board. But he inspired us then as a board, and he's inspired us today. So thank you, Governor, for being here and sharing your time, your message. So with that, Lisa, hope you don't mind us preempting the program for just a minute for the governor. But I think you'll agree it's probably worth it. So we'll turn the time to you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Lisa Clark Price, and I am with the Statue of Responsibility Foundation. It's a very, very honoring experience to have you here, Governor. And we did not know you were coming, and what a nice surprise. This has been 24 hours of beautiful, wonderful surprises. At our dinner event last night, Congressman Burgess Owens surprised us and came to our dinner and is now a very avid supporter. He said goodbye to us 4 times last night and kept coming back for more. And by the time I got to my car an hour later, he'd already texted and asked when we will be back from Arizona to meet with him next week. So mighty thank you to you. That was very powerful. And I do believe the first time we met you, Alan, you shared that very quote with us, that we are doing big things. And I want to acknowledge our board and my husband, because we do big things. We do hard things, and we do big things, and we do them very well. I have great confidence in the people that are behind me and all the supporters, and I want to thank them as well. So with that, I want to begin what I'm going to say with what Gary started with there about my phrase, it's more than a monument, it's a movement. Not only are we offering Utah the opportunity to have a 305-foot monument to bookend the Statue of Liberty, the Statue of Responsibility, we are offering you a movement that we have spent the last 15 years cultivating, nurturing, developing, that will cover the gamut from anywhere from education and partners in place to help assist us with that, to creating a hub for all nonprofits of the world. A place, Governor, when you say you hope people from the world will come, we have a plan for that. And it's beautiful. And it was one of the things that Congressman Owens came back 4 times about. And in a nutshell, part of what that stands for, you will see at the bottom here. Liberty's true name is Liberty Enlightening the World. We are proposing that Responsibility's full name will be Responsibility Empowering the World. I have a dream. It's a big dream. I have a dream that we will live in a world where we no longer have people who go to bed hungry or thirsty, where we no longer have things like child trafficking, where we live in a world where we can be a beacon on how to do that. We want to be a vetting system, the Statue of Responsibility for the nonprofits of the world. We want this movement that will go in place, hopefully about the time we dedicate in 2025, a place where we have a stamp of approval for nonprofits. And we have 2 who are with us here today that will represent water and food. We're not going to have time to hear from them today, but I do want you to know, Governor, that we would love to have a meeting at some point if this is approved by this committee. And, you know, I'm just going to skip my words here, and I'm going to go quickly because I know you guys have a lot to do today. And I'm going to share with you that I believe that the project, the Statue of Responsibility, will meet the criteria that I heard Don Willie speak about earlier. There were 3 things that you were looking for, if I heard that correctly. Number 1, you want to have something join the Point project as an outside project. That would be what we are. Something that will bring, number 1, legislative support. I believe we have that. Number 2, you want to have something that will bring public support. We have global public support right now, and we have that with us here today. And number 3, I know that you would love to have some financial support, something that brings something fiscally to the state of Utah. And I know very well that the Statue of Responsibility with its movement will bring an agile opportunity to engage in something interactive. You won't just come to the statue to go up and down and have a view. You will come to have your life changed, to come and have a reason to be inspired to live more responsibility, to live responsibly by being that hand reaching down, and to bring your family and your grandchildren, and for them to bring their families and their grandchildren, to come every time they come to the Statue of Responsibility multiple times a year and have a different experience and a different inspiration, and find something that they can take into their hearts and into their families and into their neighborhoods and into their countries, and change the world for better. May we all be a part of something bigger than we are, because we are great alone, but together we are unstoppable. So let's do this. Let's do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
And we have asked two people to take a moment for our team. First, Val Hill, who has agreed to be part of our executive team. And then we'll close it with Bill Fillmore, who is not only our legal counsel, but also serves on our board at the Statue of Responsibility Foundation. And thank you for your time, all of you.
Thank you again. Val, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's been a while since I sat among you. Congratulations on what you've accomplished. I guess this meeting today is a culmination of a lot of work and some big decisions. Governor, I'll tell you what, listening to your speech and Mr. Cohen's speech and Lisa's speech, it was worth sitting in rush hour traffic on I-15 from Utah County to hear those. I still have tears in my eyes after hearing that. So there's nothing I can really add to what they say, other than I remember sitting in those first meetings when then Lieutenant Governor Cox was trying to inspire us to a higher vision for this project. And we talked about building some sort of iconic structure that would be a magnet for tourists, something that really set apart not only that part of our valley and our state, but would be something that the world would look at and would become something that Utah would be known for. And I really think this fits the bill. I've known Lisa and Gary for a long time. When I was at UVU, I helped arrange for a place for Gary to sculpt. How tall was that, Gary? He was actually sculpting a 15-foot version of this statue, and we found a place in a rotunda so that the students could come and watch him sculpt as he made this statue. And I've been a believer of this and a supporter of this, and I'm really excited that Utah could be the beneficiary. I always felt a little bit cheated when they were out talking to California about putting it on the West Coast. And this was born here in Utah. It needs to be raised here in Utah and celebrated here in Utah. So thank you for considering this. Thanks for all you're doing. Congratulations. I'm envious of what you're doing and the way that you're contributing to our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Val. Mr. Fillmore, welcome to our board.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate the opportunity. Let me share a bit of history, maybe to put this in context. In 2004, I found myself in Vienna with Gary Price. It was a bit of a homecoming for me. A good many years before that, I was one of those young men in a suit and tie with a certain lapel badge, bouncing around on my bicycle on cobblestone streets in Vienna. And so I had come back for the purpose of meeting with the Viktor Frankl's family to secure their endorsement of this project. Towards the end of his life, Viktor Frankl found himself on the lecture circuit in America and became fast friends with a man by the name of Stephen Covey, and a renowned professor at BYU. Steve Covey became enchanted with the idea that Viktor Frankl had promoted in one of the later editions of his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that it would be a grand idea if America would build a Statue of Responsibility on the west in the western United States as a geographical and philosophical bookend to the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. His premise was that freedom requires not just liberty, but responsibility for it to be lasting and durable and good. And Professor Covey loved that idea. And unfortunately, as his health waned, I was engaged to serve as legal counsel, but his energy diminished somewhat in his latter years, but not before he had engaged me as legal counsel for the statues project. My thought when I was approached by this was, if we were going to do it, we need to do it right, and we needed to have the endorsement of Viktor Frankl's family. And so with Gary, we took a small entourage to Vienna, had a marvelous time, and I would suggest quite literally a miraculous outcome. It's a great story that Gary has alluded to, and maybe he'll share with you in detail some other time. But we came back with a sense of mission. We came back on fire. Unfortunately, we had some interruptions like a recession, and most recently the pandemic, and in between some difficulties with some management that didn't quite have the same vision. But we now find ourselves in a place where we have the band together, not back together, but a new band, a good band, and all the parts seem to be falling into place. And we feel like everything is there. We've learned a lot over the past 19 years. We feel like we've separated the wheat from the chaff in most regards. And we thought we were ready to go, and our focus had always been on California, on the West Coast. We had thought that one time people were thinking about San Francisco, and we said, well, maybe that's not the most responsible city in the Union. We had people suggesting that, golly, we can get all the money we want in Las Vegas. We said, well, maybe that's not the most responsible place. We even had one of our ex-managers suggest that he could raise all the money we needed in China and we could do it in Beijing. And so that's certainly a non-starter. So our focus was primarily on San Diego. And one of the reasons for that was because Viktor Frankl had usually concluded his lecture tours in America in San Diego. And we had many conversations with city leaders in San Diego. But it had become apparent over the past several years that perhaps the political environment in California is not conducive to such a monument. And particularly we've been found rather daunting the prospect of dealing with the California Coastal Commission and all the red tape that would be involved, and concluded that we might not see this monument built for 10 or 20 years, if then at all. And so when the idea was approached to us that there might be an opportunity in Utah with the Point development, when I first heard of that, it was like I heard in the background a giant gong. It just all of a sudden, it just made so much sense. I think everything was falling into place. We all love the state of Utah. We love what it stands for. We think of responsibility. It's easy to consider Utah as the best managed state in the Union, always a balanced budget, where we try to do things, as we say, the Utah way, which is reasonable and considerate and thoughtful of others' concerns, but trying to get it right. And to use an old phrase, we are at the crossroads of the West, and underscored literally by the inland port, if you will. We seem uniquely situated for many reasons. A booming economy, yes, but also the values that we share here in Utah, to be the home for the Statue of Responsibility. And so we're delighted that you have taken this opportunity seriously. We are delighted to invite you to partner with us to do something really big, to do something that can really make a difference in our country at a time when we desperately need a greater sense of individual and civic responsibility. So we look forward to working with you. Hope that this might come together and be a blessing to many around the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I understand, David, Lisa, that concludes your presentation. Thank you very much for that. This is actually on our agenda for possible action. And so in order to move things along a little bit, I'm going to entertain a motion on this item.